I'm Sue Bergeron, and I'm what they call in the business a character actress. It all started when I was cast to play Betty the Bear in my kindergarten production of Our Furry Friends. My mother was asked to make my costume, and as we didn't have a bear costume, she dyed our Tony the Tiger costume brown. It was an instant hit as I tumbled on stage, and all the kids started laughing at my brown stripes. It would be years later until my mother told me that they were actually laughing at the brown stripes and not all of my brilliant lines like, "Move over, honey." But that's okay, because it opened up a wonderful world of acting, something that stayed with me my whole life. I do regret I never got to perform in a William Shakespeare play. I love Shakespeare, and I've read many of his plays, and I've gotten to see many of his plays. The whole purpose of my project was to go around in Rhode Island and talk to people of all walks of life and see how much they actually know about the Bard 400 years later. And you know, it's funny, people were really great. Almost everyone was willing to talk to me about Shakespeare, even if they didn't know much about him. One thing I learned, even though I wasn't in a Shakespeare play, was about the curse. One time while I was in a play, I made the big mistake of mentioning the forbidden word. And all the actors in the play went crazy and their hair on fire. They started screaming and yelling, and they threw me outside the back door, and I had to spit over my left shoulder and twirl around 3 times and beg for them to let me back in. And I did come to the play closed, by the way, in 3 days. It was a disaster. And because of that, I did come to believe that there is something to the curse. So come along with me and let's go on this journey through Rhode Island and see how much people actually know about Shakespeare. I'm on the east side of Providence now. I'm going to check out the Brown Bookstore and see how much the book readers know about Shakespeare. What's your name?
James.
James, I'm going to ask you a couple questions about Shakespeare. Do you know when we say the Dane, who we're referring to?
The Dame.
The Dane. D-A-N-E.
N or M?
N.
It sounds familiar, but I don't know.
I'll tell you, it's Hamlet. It's Hamlet. Yeah, it's Hamlet. How about the Scottish play?
Macbeth?
Right, you got it. Do you know about the curse? The curse?
The Tempest?
No, the curse is...
Oh, in Macbeth.
Yeah, the curse is when actors are working on a play. They're not allowed to say the word Macbeth.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, or else they curse the play.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Do you know how many words Shakespeare may have invented?
500.
1,700 words. Amazing, isn't that amazing? And how about, what do you know about when he was born?
Yeah, 1560?
Ooh, close, 1564. And he died in 1616. He was pretty young, 52. Do you know if he was old when he died, if he was rich or poor?
I think he was poor.
Everybody says that. He was actually very wealthy.
Oh.
Yeah, he had a lot of investments. Hi, my name's Sue, and I'm making a little short about Shakespeare. What's your name?
Ryan.
Ryan. Do you think he was rich or poor when Shakespeare died?
Do I think Shakespeare was rich or poor?
Yes.
I don't know. Poor.
That's funny. Everybody thinks he was poor. He was actually very wealthy. He had a lot of investments. He didn't get rich on his plays either.
I thought rich was the easy answer, so I tried to go opposite of that. Yeah, that was a bad strategy in the end.
What's your name?
Nick.
Nick. I'm going to ask you, how many plays do you think Shakespeare wrote?
100.
It's 37.
Not so bad.
Not so bad. And for the student who has everything, much ado about nothing, sticky notes. Oh, look who it is, my buddy, Mr. Brown Bear, a kindred spirit. Let's see if the Brown medical students give a hoot about Shakespeare. So what's your name?
My name is Wasa Bagayoko.
Oh, it's very nice to meet you. My name is Sue, and I'm just going to ask you a couple questions about Shakespeare. Do you have any idea about when he was born?
Okay, I know that he wrote Macbeth based off of the, like, tyranny and problems with the Scottish government. I want to say, like, 1620 something.
That's close to when he died. He died in 1616.
There, okay.
He was born in 1564.
There we go.
Oh, yeah. Do you know if he was rich or poor when he died?
He was definitely poor when he died. Like, a lot of his works weren't actually liked when they were put on while he was alive.
Well, actually, he was pretty wealthy, but
Really?
he didn't make much money off of his plays. It was
I
off of
see.
investments in the theaters. Do you know any Broadway musicals that were based on Shakespeare's works?
Is the Lion? No, Lion King isn't Hamlet. That's wrong. Lion King is
Someone
the
else
story.
said that today that it
Yeah.
was. I got to check into that.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm making an association. Nothing's coming to mind, but like there definitely are some Broadway shows.
Yeah, there's a couple. Romeo and Juliet, they say West Side Story.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's enough. We're not going to torture you anymore. Thank you
you.
so much.
Of course.
To flee or not to flee? That is the question. Once you get caught by the book clerk, I'm going to get tossed out of here any second. Guerrilla filming is not always fun. What do you say, camera grip?
I say exit stage left.
Oh, let's go. Probably the most famous speech that almost any man on the street would recognize is the to be or not to be speech from Hamlet. They may not know that it's from Hamlet, but if you read them a couple of lines from it and asked them who wrote this, they would in most cases say, oh, that's Shakespeare. So I intend to go out into the streets and test that. What if I were to dress up in a dog costume and stand outside the pet store and ask people if I could read to flee or not to flee to their dog, if they would allow me, if they thought it would improve their dog's education, if it would make their dog a little more cultured, if they would allow me to do that, and maybe it would come out a little bit something like this. To flee or not to flee, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing them, to die. Here we are on the campus of Brown University, a premier Ivy League school. Let's test the knowledge of Shakespeare with the Brown students.
I should know.
gonna
I
try.
should know this.
Do you know when he was born?
16 something.
1616 was when he died. He was
Oh, he
born.
bought 1616. All right, that's
Yeah,
right.
he was
All right.
born in 1564. And he didn't get rich on all those plays. He was an investor in real estate.
Right, that's what I was like. I know the plays.
Yeah. I would have aced this in like sophomore year of high school. I feel like I'm just too.
How many words do you think he invented?
Oh, like a million. Like, I'm gonna go with 200.
1,700 that they know of, about 1,700 words. And I'm sure this is easy schmeezy for you. Something's rotten in Denmark.
Oh yes.
Yeah, that refers to the play.
Hamlet.
Hamlet, yeah. Speaking of musicals, do you know of any musicals that were based on Shakespeare?
Yeah, Shakespeare is based on
I are in the Providence train station looking for a couple of interviewees to take part in the Shakespeare project, Don't Mess with Bill. Let's see how well we do today.
I'm Rebecca.
Rebecca, it's so nice to meet you. Do you know who this is? Oh, she knows. It's Shakespeare. So I'm just testing people's knowledge of Shakespeare to see how much, just general knowledge. And I was wondering if you had a general idea when he lived.
I knew a little bit about Shakespeare growing up. Romeo and Juliet was one of my favorite plays that I read about. How the English was broken up, how he did it, and how when Romeo and Juliet first met, they were in love, and then how he bent the whole twist of the story where they met, and Romeo obviously died for Juliet, and then Juliet killed herself afterwards. But the way he wrote and bent the words of that play was one of my favorites. But I've heard about other plays. I didn't get to read them or read them specifically, and how the English is broken up, so it's very hard to understand sometimes. But otherwise, I like his novels, and I like how he wrote everything. So.
Yeah, me too. Come on, let's have a seat. Let's have a seat. Andrew, nice to meet you. My name's Sue, and I'm an actress, and I'm just doing a video short for the Fringe Festival. I'm testing people's general knowledge of Shakespeare. Do you know if he was married?
She was not.
He was married to Anne Hathaway. I wonder if the actress took the name from her.
Oh, I thought you were joking with me for a second.
Yeah, really. He was married to a woman named Anne Hathaway.
I don't think I ever learned about that in school.
Do you think he died rich or poor?
She died poor.
No, he was actually very rich.
I don't know.
Yeah, and he didn't make his money really from the plays that he wrote. He was an investor in real estate. Yeah, he was a big real estate investor. Maybe he would have been friends with Trump today. I don't think so. If he wrote a play about Trump today, do you think it would be a comedy or a drama?
He didn't do a lot of comedies, did he?
No, just a couple near the end of his life. I think he wrote a couple comedies. All right, Romeo and Juliet was really considered more of a tragic comedy.
Okay.
He wrote those two. It was a little bit of each, tragedy and comedy, because of what happened to the lovers. But speaking of Romeo and Juliet, did you know that there was a Broadway play based on that? Can you remember which one it was?
No.
What's your name again?
Andrew.
Andrew, thanks a
Yes,
lot for
of course.
taking part in our project. Next, I'm attending a meeting for retired railroad workers here at the Elwood Ewart Post 602 VFW. Let's find out how much the retired railroad workers know or care about William Shakespeare. Sir, have you ever seen a Shakespeare play?
No.
Do you think if you had a chance to see a Shakespeare play, would you?
I don't know.
How old do you think Shakespeare was when he died?
Oh, I don't know.
I have no
Before-
idea.
No idea.
How long ago do you think he lived?
No idea.
How about 400 years? Does that surprise you?
Wow. Yeah.
Sir, so you're the president of the Railroaders Retirement Association in the Providence area, right? Is that right?
That's right.
Now, have you ever seen a Shakespeare play?
I have not.
Now, okay, so how old do you think Shakespeare was when he died?
I don't know.
He was pretty young. He was 52. Yeah, when do you think? Yeah, he was 52. About when do you think he might have been born?
That I don't know neither.
Okay, 1564. Sir, have you ever seen a play by Shakespeare?
No.
Now, if I gave you a free ticket, do you think you would go see him?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Did you study Shakespeare in school?
Yeah.
Do you think, did your teachers in English class make you read anything by Shakespeare?
I never read anything by anybody.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
Ma'am, I'd like to ask you a few questions about Shakespeare. Have you ever seen a Shakespeare play?
No, I have not.
Do you remember studying Shakespeare
No.
in college or in school? No.
No.
Are you interested at all in Shakespeare?
No.
No? What do you think it is about Shakespeare that turns you off?
I don't know. Kind of boring, I think.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sir, have you ever seen a play by Shakespeare?
No.
Would you see one? Like, if I gave you a free ticket, would you go see it?
No.
No. Well, why not? What is it about Shakespeare that turns you off?
Anything with shake and spear turns me on.
Now, you're retired. What is it you used to do for a living?
I was a locomotive engineer.
Okay, so you're not interested in Shakespeare at all?
Not at all.
And would you say that most locomotive engineers would have no interest in Shakespeare?
Most would not. Some? Some might.
Thank you. Sir, what's your name?
Norman.
Norman, I just want to ask you a couple questions about Shakespeare. Have you ever seen a play about Shakespeare?
No.
So you've never seen a play. Do you know...
The Three Stooges did a little Shakespeare. That's about it. When they were in the kingdom, following the damsels. That's all I know.
So
Trumpeters.
if somebody gave you a free ticket to see Shakespeare, do you think you would? No, you wouldn't. What is it about Shakespeare that turns you off?
Nothing really.
Nothing really. You just, well...
I don't know anything about him.
No, you don't know anything about him. No.
To be or not to be.
Sir, I understand you're a retired railroad engineer?
Yes.
Okay, and I was just going to ask you a couple questions about Shakespeare. I'm working on a project, and it's to find out how much knowledge the general public has about Shakespeare. I'm just going to ask a couple simple questions. You know, like in general, about how many years ago he lived?
I would say about 200 years ago.
Oh, close. It was 400.
Well, that sounds logical because I have tried to read some of his stuff, and although it's supposedly written in the English language, it makes no sense to me whatsoever.
A lot of people say that. I'm trying to find out, what it is about his work that resonates with us today.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you what it is. It's bandwagon. Now, I understand if you go to his hometown of Stratford, England, you try and get into his house, you have to wait 2.5 hours to get in there. Everybody goes to Shakespeare's house in Stratford because that's what everybody else does. Big deal, I couldn't care less.
Hi, Jake. I'm doing a little project. Do you have any idea how many plays Shakespeare might have written?
I think I would guess around 40.
Close. 37. Yeah, 37. Yeah, you were close. Yeah. So, what did I find out about Mr. Shakespeare after doing all those interviews on the street? Well, number one, it seems like everyone thought Mr. Shakespeare died poor. Almost to a fault. Only one person really thought that he died rich. And nearly everyone could identify Hamlet as a play that he wrote. It's probably one of his most famous. Most people had a pretty good idea of the general time period that Shakespeare lived in, and that's pretty good. Not surprisingly, the people who knew the most about Shakespeare were those who were in the performing arts, and the students who were studying the performing arts knew the most about Shakespeare. Also, in my unscientific poll, I discovered that blue-collar workers seemed to care the least about Shakespeare and found him very boring. No one was willing to read Hamlet with a Southern accent or without a Southern accent. No one was willing to read the Hamlet speech. And I also learned that Americans in general love being filmed. And I guess that's not surprising because it's in our DNA. After all, we invented Hollywood. And also, I learned that dogs do love Shakespeare. Or else maybe it's just that they like being read to and being paid attention to by humans. And I also learned that Rhode Islanders were just good sports in general. Almost everyone said yes to the interview. And I only wish I had more time to do more interviews and more space on my Apple iPhone. And I'll close by saying it was just way too much of a good thing.
Why do you think people are still interested in the work of someone who died 400 years ago?
I think part of it has to do with the scope of storytelling. I think there's so much that can be mined from any of the political plays, any of the dramatic plays. There are just so many themes that we like to center on this one author because he allows so much to be discussed within that one linked context of him.
Oh, that's a good answer. That's a good answer. I like that.
Play within a play in Hamlet. And that's a quote that's lived on
About him.
for centuries.
To be or not to be? That's about
Such
it.
a small, tiny little quote has such power.
The girls today in society go for classical poetry. So to win their hearts one must quote with ease Aeschylus and Euripides. One must know Homer and believe me, Bo, Sophocles, also Sappho. Unless you know Shelley and Keats and Pope, dainty Debbies will call you a dope. But the poet of them all, who will start 'em simply raving, is the poet people call the Bard of Stratford-on-Avon. Brush up your Shakespeare, start quoting him now. Brush up your Shakespeare, and the women you will wow. Just declaim a few lines from Othello, and they'll think you're a hell of a fella. If your blonde won't respond when you flatter her, tell her what Tony told Cleopatra. If she fights when her clothes you are mussing, what are clothes much ado about nothing? Brush up your Shakespeare, and they'll all cow. Brush up your Shakespeare.